realize where the division's at. We don't want to overthink anything. We know we got a tough matchup against the Saints, a great team that's playing, really good football right now. They're hot right now. And, yeah, I don't want to throw the word desperate around, but, we realize where we're at and we're cognizant of it. But we're going to go down there and give it our best effort. We haven't gotten it done every week, and we got to find a way to figure that out. But, the urgency is really always there. This is the National Football League, and every week is crucial and important. And like I said, we know where we're at, but we're just going to take it one week at a time.
Stink, 3 games into this season, we said, what's the deal with the Philadelphia? What's their identity? Who do they want to be? 5 games in, we said, what's the deal with the Eagles? Like, what is their identity? Who do they want to be? So now we're past the halfway mark. We still don't really know what their identity is. Do you trust this Eagles team?
Well, no, I don't trust them, and you should have your finger on the panic button. Absolutely, I don't trust them. It's really interesting because you win a championship, and it's not necessarily the stars that you think, oh, we're going to lose stars, or it's not necessarily the stars on your team. If you listen to center Jason Kelsey talk, he talks about all the ancillary players. He talks about the Sellecks of the world. He talks about the Torrey Smiths of the world, the professionals of the world who really brought that locker room together. Those are the guys you miss. Those guys get opportunities elsewhere, and they leave your football team. And what you don't realize, and you need to realize as an organization, is some of those guys are the glue guys that hold the locker room together, that bind the defense to the offense. We always talk about availability being a skill, and people say, hey, the best ability is availability. The best ability is accountability. Being accountable to one another, being accountable to each other, being responsible for one another. And when you lose some of that, you lose some of those core guys on a football team, it's absolutely amazing how it affects that locker room. And, it's so interesting because you you've been there, you put 53 guys together. You're going to have, you got 5 guys who are touched that need to be babysat, right? And you have to have this ratio, and it's amazing, the gravitational pull when you have professionals. You can have a locker room full of professionals. If you get more than that 4 or 5 guys that are a little bit off the reservation on the other side a little bit, you get 6, 7 of those guys. The gravitational pull of guys going from the professional side to crossing the line to not so professional, it's amazing what it does to your football team. So those are the things that you look at and you wonder why teams have these, these drop-offs after they win championships. And I understand injuries and all those things, but you start losing some of those valuable guys that nobody really knows the name. That special teams dude that gives you a look in practice that you wouldn't get otherwise, and he gets a chance to go elsewhere. That's what happens to you.
Yeah, that connective tissue that goes with championships, it's hard to buy it when you're trying to put a roster together, because the experience that players have in the journey, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You can't bottle it up. Like when they were at the parade, they couldn't bottle that up. They thought they could. That's what they thought New England does. New England bottles this thing up, and they break it out every year. No, they don't. They recapture it every year. They start from scratch. All right? They don't take it for granted. They don't think that they have it figured out. But there's 2 components, I believe, that have affected the Eagles and the reason why we can't trust them. One is those players like Torrey Smith, those players that were on that once-in-a-lifetime journey, those things that you can't pinpoint. Nick Foles assuming the responsibility of being the starter and stepping up those last 2 games of the season. The other thing is, man, they miss those coaches, man.
Yeah.
They miss John DeFilippo, the quarterback coach, who's talking in his ear. Even though the quarterback's playing well, what about the play calling? What about our 3rd down package? What about relieving that burden from Doug, who's a first-time head coach?
How much NFL experience walked out the door?
Yeah, and Frank Reich. Man, Frank Reich's one of the best human beings. He's a great football coach. You think he's not missed? You listen to Doug Peterson's press conference. You think he don't miss some type of lieutenant to be able to whisper in his ear? Hey, buddy, you know something? Don't stress out about this. We're going to be all right. Because last year, that's what they did when Carson got hurt. So Stink hits it right on the head. Those players with those intangible qualities that make a team and make a season special, that Stink would know. He's done it with a couple different organizations. Those players are important, and every winter, you're going to lose coaches. And those things we have seen the Eagles, they have led to their detriment in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, how important is Frank Reich? Go ask Andrew Luck, who, after missing a year of football, all of a sudden is playing the best football of his career. And I know it's 2018, everyone's putting up great numbers.
I know the general manager of the Colts, he wanted Josh McDaniel. And they thought that there were more qualified candidates for Frank Wright. But he trusted Frank Wright. That's what he told one of my sources and said, the reason why we hired Frank, not because he was the best, he said, I trust him as a coach and to do the right thing, Nick.
So when it comes to the Eagles in 2018, you know how they make a hell of a lot more sense when you're thinking about last year? Just convince yourself Julio caught that ball in the divisional playoff game, and they lose 16-15. Julio, there wasn't a fourth down, goal line, down 15-10. They throw it into the end zone, Atlanta does, and Julio almost comes down with it. He doesn't, and then they go on this 2-game run that was spectacular. And that's why this year's been so confusing, because we saw what they did with backups. We saw what they did with Nick Foles. We saw them beat the brakes off a Vikings team that was excellent and then go toe-to-toe with the Patriots and outlast them. That's why you can't figure, if that's who you are, how do you lose your biggest game of the year to a Cowboys team that was ready to be knocked out? Makes a lot more sense. Oh, Philly, they couldn't even get out of their first playoff game once Carson Wentz went down. Like, then you know what they remind you of? That Raider team a couple years ago that was having a great season. Their quarterback went down, one and done in the playoffs, and then the next year took a step back. I know that's not what happened, but that you almost have to convince yourself that is what happened to make sense of what is happening this year.
Stink, and I'm sure Stink will potentially have the same opinion. You've been in the NFL a long time, and you will never understand. You guys have covered the NFL a long time. You're never going to understand. Stink and I have been around it enough and covered enough that we have a deeper understanding because we've seen some of the craziest stuff happen. But young coaches and young players, they think they know the league. Philadelphia thought they knew what it was to be a champion. That's why they talked all this offseason. They thought they had that down. Oh, man, we're having fun. Oh, it's great to play for this organization. Okay, be careful. You don't know as much as you understand. And a lot of times we see players, we see coaches, they've been around the league 1 or 2 times. They think, oh, I understand this. No, you don't understand pro football. And they are getting a lesson this year of what it's like to be a champion, Stink.
No, there's no question. And everybody, you've got a target. You know, it's really, I tell you what, it's easier to deal in life in general with failure than it is success. Because success, when you have it, you know what? You take it for granted. It's easy. Like the good times in my life, you know what? I've never really, I'm so busy patting myself on the back, right? That I don't really ever learn anything.
You also don't get better.
Right. It's the tough times in my life, the tough things that have happened to me where I have learned a lot about myself, a lot about the people that I surround myself with. Those are the times that have been expansive in my life, where I've learned and I've grown as a person. During the good times, man, I'm too busy, I'm too busy congratulating myself.
Yeah, I'm ripped.
Right, yeah, exactly. I'm yoked.
You are yoked. Stick around. Let's talk much more about yokes and